What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and we have a couple of brand new champions in Bloodline Heroes of Lithas. It is the Thunderlords, and they are stunning. So of course today I'm going to do a breakdown, talk about their traits, and which one might be better, the male or the female. But first, download Bloodline Heroes of Lithas, a mobile RPG action fighting game where you can marry your champions to create new and unique hybrids. Use the link in the description to start with some free stuff, including gold and diamonds. See you hopefully soon. Alright, so let's start out by looking at the Thunderlord's trait, which is called Furious Thunderbolts. And I use this partially to determine if it's worth it or not to get the companion, where you can really use intimacy to level up the trait. And we have a level 22 trait here, so the numbers are according to that. Of course, if you have a lower rarity champion, these numbers are going to be lower. It says, each normal attack has a 70% chance to increase damage by 50%. This effect doesn't stack, so do note that. It doesn't stack. So I know it's tempting to think about how you might be able to pair this with some other things, but unfortunately you're not going to be able to pile that on. And not only that, but normal attacks generally don't deal a ton of damage in Bloodline. So 70% chance to increase damage by 50% is probably not going to seem like much in the grand scheme of things, because it's often the active skills and the ultimates that deal most of the damage anyway. So I'm not sure this trait is going to be too impactful. I'm not going to go for the companion just for this. But if I go for the companion, it's going to be because I want to potentially level the champions up fully to 15 stars. So let's take a look at the champions, and I'm going to look at them in the renowned champions section just because they're maxed out, and I want to answer the question, if I put all the resources into this champion, is it going to be worth it? So let's take a look at the male first. I'm going to look at the passive, because the passive is the first thing that affects the battlefield, and then we'll go to the active and the ultimate, usually the order that you see this go. All right, Thunderclap Spear. Normal attacks have piercing effects, dealing damage to all enemies along the path, equal to 80% of the caster's strength, and leaving a lightning spear at the end of the line. That's going to be important for what the ultimate does. Normal attack also has a 70% chance to inflict stunned for 1 second. So got to admit, I wasn't like super impressed with the passive till I got to that part, because that has the potential to be a lot of stunning. I mean, a passive that's causing stunning, that's pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at the active. Cluster Shocks. Strikes 4 times, each dealing damage to one random enemy equal to 250% of the caster's strength, and leaving a lightning spear in their locations. So another thing that's leaving lightning spears behind. When the same target takes multiple attacks, each subsequent attack deals 24% more damage and inflicts a stun effect for 1 second. So another thing that's dealing stun potentially. We've got it on the passive and we've got it on the active special here. And the ultimate, Tribunal of Thunder, detonates all lightning spears in the battlefield, each dealing damage equal to 300% of the caster's strength to nearby enemies, and leaving behind an electric field that lasts 8 seconds. So I do think that it could be potentially random who's going to be dealt damage, and it's hard in this game to depend on champions that are doing random things like that, like placing the spears wherever, because champions don't stay still in the battlefield. You can't predict where it's going to go. You might have a champion you're really trying to take out, and you can't predict that you can do that. So it's hard. This is going to be a hard hero to control. Whenever the target in an electric field takes damage, 24% of the damage will be passed on to other enemies trapped inside the electric field, I should say. Okay, so here's what I know. This champion's going to be really good for CC, for crowd control. And clearly, a champion like this would naturally pair with Male Water and Sun, because you want as many control effects as you can get there. So if the damage output can be good, this has the potential to be good. What I think is a little bit of a mystery right now is how those lightning rods are going to deal damage. They're kind of being placed randomly. It's really hard to say, I think, how that damage field is going to play out, and we kind of just have to see that in testing. But I'm liking the male Thunderlord right now for PvP. I think he could be good with bosses too, but I think this is more of a PvP type of champion. All right, so one thing I didn't mention that I should have mentioned is that both of these are rangers. So you're probably going to place him in that like middle spot, like the 2 spot, or the back, like the 4 and the 5, because generally you're going to want to try to protect him. Now you can get creative because there's a lot of assassins in this game who are going to try to take the back line, and then sometimes, especially because he's got that stunned effect, you can get away with maybe putting him in the front, as long as you've got like a warrior tank champion, probably a tank champion. I don't ever see warriors in my level of play, unless you've got the male lion, of course. But you're probably going to put a tank or something really difficult to take down in the back that can run up and still protect him. Anyway, let's take a look at the female there. So I'm thinking him for PvP. What about her? Her passive says static induction. Normal attacks will bounce to at most 2 nearby enemy targets and deal additional damage equal to 15% of the target's current constitution. Ooh, that's spicy. Because if you're taking her up against a really high, let's say they put energetic trait on, high HP champion, then dealing damage equal to 15% of the target's current constitution is going to deal a lot. But there's a caveat, no more than 1200% of the caster's max strength. So you do want to level her up. It means she doesn't necessarily have to be as high as the champion she's taking on, but there is a cap if she's not leveled high. So you do want to get the strength up, definitely putting brutal on her. 70% of the normal attack damage and additional damage received by the main target will be dealt to additional targets. So spreading the love. Okay. So, I mean, right off the bat, this is just a really great passive against bosses. So I'm thinking already PvE for her, at least with that particular passive. The active is Electrocution. Casts 2 consecutive lightning strikes on a random enemy targets, each dealing damage equal to 480% of the caster's strength and inflicting stun for 2.55. Or I'm sorry, 2.5 seconds, not 2.55. That would be strangely specific. The same enemy can be hit by both lightning strikes, and we kind of hope that happens, right? At least in the PvP world, but in PvE, where maybe you have one boss, well, hey, that should hit both on the same one. Prison of Lightning is the ultimate, calls forth all lightning pool that lasts for 6 seconds above the current enemy target. Once per 0.5 seconds, the lightning pool summons lightning upon a random enemy target within the range, dealing damage equal to 250% of the caster's strength and inflicting stun for 0.5 seconds. All right, so we've got another stunning champion, another CC hero that I think could do well with Male, Water, and Sun in PvP situations. But I think this passive is making her seem particularly good against bosses in PvE in particular. So, you know, it's really a tough choice here of who to actually go for and level up if you're only going to do one. I think the male is going to be very good at PvP and still good at PvE, while she's probably going to be excellent at PvE and very good at PvP. So they kind of serve different roles, and it depends on what you need to fit into your roster. I think they both get pretty much the same kind of traits. I know if I had one of them right now, I would absolutely be slapping Brutal on. I would also probably be going for Honorable, which is just one of my favorite to help keep champions alive. And then I do some mix of like a speed or mana trait. So Focused, Agile, the Stone Thrower trait, all good ones to kind of speed up what's happening on the battlefield here. Honestly, I don't think the traits are too creative. Those are a lot of the ones that are often used. I don't like Furious as much, but I could see an argument if you want to go strictly PvE with her and you just want to get the most damage possible. That could absolutely be one that you put on her as well. I mean, there's plenty of other damage dealing traits. Aggressive would be another one potentially that you could go with if you're just trying to max damage against bosses. But I would only do that if you're planning to use her against bosses. Those aren't ones I would necessarily put on the male. I would pretty much go strictly with the first ones that I mentioned there. So which one's better? I mean, the way I described it there, I'm leaning towards the female just a little bit. But it's hard. I'm going to have to see how this plays out. I'm going to need to see some testing. I'm not sure if I'm all in quite yet, only because a lot of what we're seeing here are things I already have on my roster. So who do I replace her with, you know? Or who do I replace on my roster with her, I should say. And I don't know that I have a clear answer for that. So I'm going to have to mull it over. I'm going to have to kind of see how she's playing out and that kind of thing. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments whether you think the male or the female is better, whether you're going all in for it. I personally don't think these are necessarily meta heroes, but they complement a lot of what's out there already, especially the male water and sun. And honestly, you can't have too much control in this day and age, because the more you seem to be able to control opponents in this day and age, the more damage you seem to be able to do and are more likely to win. Oftentimes, I am beating opponents far, far higher power than I am simply on the control elements. So I think it remains to be seen how much the control elements are going to come in, but I think they're great heroes. I think they've got stunning artwork, pun intended. So I am looking forward to them. Hopefully you are too. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification, and I will catch you in the next one.